Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of this filmmaking masterclass workshop. I really hope you enjoyed the exercise from episode 1 about values and your value system. I hope from doing that exercise you have a better understanding what it is that you hold dear. It's a really good way about you finding your voice, something that I really mentioned in that first episode and something that we're now going to develop into episode 2. Now that you have hopefully a better understanding of your values, you can now explore what types of stories you would like to tell. Now, story is the most fundamental, important thing that us as human beings, we do. No matter what part of the planet you're from, no matter what religion, race, background, class, etc. that you come from, human beings, since the beginning of time, we've used stories to share how we feel, to pass on moral messages, to understand the world that we live in. Since we've sat around in caves around fires, we've shared stories. Even today, when we look around us, from cinema to TV, even sports, when people talk about football, they often talk in narratives and with stories. When you communicate with your friends, you may realize that you are actually telling stories. You are holding court and expressing a beginning, middle, end to what it is you are sharing. So story fundamentally underpins us as human beings. Even when we sleep, we dream and we think of stories. So we can never really escape the importance of sharing stories. And this is why, as filmmakers, it's really important that we have a great story, something we're really, really passionate about. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the principles of story and storytelling in the hope that it helps you find your own story. So, for example, every story has a protagonist. The protagonist, that's your lead character. It's your hero or your heroine. Now, every protagonist will face the opposite of them, which is an antagonist. Sometimes a bad guy, a villain. Sometimes an antagonist isn't a person. It could be forces of antagonism. It could be an earthquake. It could be the coronavirus, for example. So an antagonist is something that conflicts with your protagonist. It stops them getting their goal. And conflict, that's where real drama comes from. So you need to think about your protagonist. Who are they? Who is the antagonist or the forces of antagonism? Where does that conflict come from? Now, all stories also have a beginning, middle, and end, as Aristotle himself said. That may seem obvious to a lot of you. You've always understood that stories have a beginning, middle, and end. And this is again another example how story is embedded within our DNA as human beings. All children, when they tell stories, they begin with once upon a time and they end with and they all lived happily ever after. So all of us understand that stories have a beginning, middle, and end. So what I want you to do, I want you to have a think about what is your story. Who is your main character? What is the antagonist? What is stopping them? And what is their journey? That's the most important thing, is that journey from beginning, middle to end. Now, for this, I'm going to set certain parameters. One parameter I want to set for you with this challenge is to try and use as least to minimal, i.e. no dialogue, as possible. Okay? What we want to do with these workshops is we don't want to do theatre or create a play. Plays are often very dialogue driven. I want you to think about a story that can be told using as less talking, as less dialogue. So that's characters talking. We will use sound, we'll use sound effects, music, etc. But I want you to try and think about using as least dialogue as possible. Also work with what's around you. Don't make a story where it's huge, an alien invasion, a mothership comes down, lots of special effects. Think of your setting, think of who you can use. Can you get people to act in it? Can you use other things to act in it? How will you do it? But set yourself parameters. Let's say that this film will be no longer than 5 minutes. Use what you know, use what you've got around you. I want you to work that out with pen and paper. Work out, you don't have to write a script, just work out the beats of the story with as least to no dialogue as possible. Then what we're going to do with the following next few episodes is explore how you tell that story well. Enjoy.